Welcome to this week's episode on The Puzzle of Us with your host, Chelsea Peterson from Cache Valley Counseling. I am so excited today to talk to you about how to manage a major depressive disorder. I feel like this is a pretty common thing, and a lot of times people don't even recognize that they are going through maybe a depressive disorder or a depressive episode. And I'm excited to kind of dig into some of the things that might be keys in recognizing whether or not you're going through having a depressive episode, or whether or not you might need some long-term help, and also some keys to helping you get through what might be a depressive episode that you're experiencing. So sometimes, just diving right in here, sometimes a major depressive disorder or episode can really kind of come out of nowhere. Sometimes we see like postpartum depression or things like that happen after like major transitions, often like after, let's see, postpartum or launching your kids or things like that kind of come with some pretty major expectations. Sometimes those can be at times in the lifespan that we see depression or even anxiety kind of kick up a little bit more, but it really can come out of nowhere. It does feel really pretty difficult. And sometimes that can be just like going about our day, and it can last for a few days. It can last for a few weeks. It can last for months. Most of the time, if to really be considered a major depressive episode, it has to last typically a couple of weeks and really impact your functioning, right? If you have one bad day where it's just like, I'm not doing anything, and then you pop right back up and the next day you're doing okay and you stay functioning for a while, typically that doesn't happen to most people, but it can. So depression it's a very common thing, but it can look very different for different people. So some people experience the inability to even truly get out of bed. They want to, that expression of like, I'm just going to stay in bed all day and keep the covers over my head. They really do. You may be experiencing that. It's really hard. So we really clinically, we look at the impaired function of your day. How much is depression really impacting your ability to get up, put your kids on the bus, go to work, get yourself dressed, eat, sleep, do those sort of things. And so when you're having a major depressive episode, often even the littlest things become incredibly difficult to do. Lots of times people are forgetting to eat, forgetting to brush their teeth. Basic hygiene becomes an issue. I was working with a client one time that our goal after even a month of working together was walking to the mailbox. That's it. Just out the sidewalk, out to her driveway, out to the mailbox that was at the end of her driveway, and back into her house, because major depressive disorder had taken over. And she really she'd lost all will basically to live or to do anything. Having depression can be a really big struggle because the people around you often feel like something's wrong with them. Why doesn't mom love me enough to get out of bed, to make me breakfast, to get me off to school? Is often feelings around that, and around the people around people who are experiencing major depressive disorders really do. They're very much affected by this. It is a disease or disorder that affects not just a single person, but really the whole system, and can be really, really impactful, not just for the week or the month that it's present, but really it can have a life-lasting effect. Usually when you're talking about someone having a major depressive disorder, you're talking about a reoccurring thing that happens. Think like chronic pain, right? It doesn't go away. There might be moments or times when they're able to manage and it's able to be lesser. And then there might be other times where, again, thinking chronic pain, people tweak their back, right? Something in their life gets tweaked a little bit and they go back to having depression. They go back to experiencing an episode, right? An episode usually does, classifying depression as those dips, as those low moments where things get really, we get really down and are unable to, again, going back to the daily function. They're really impacted by that. And so that's really what we are paying attention to in these episodes, right? So when we're talking about an episode, we're talking about a period of time when our life is affected by that. And that, again, can last from anywhere from a week, a day, even a month to a couple of months. More often than not, a bout of depression lasts typically about a week to 2 weeks, and then people work their way out of it, particularly people who struggle with chronic depression and get used to the ups and downs of the roller coaster. They can feel the depressive episode coming on, and they begin to put those things in place. Some of the tips that we're going to talk about, they start to do some of those to be able to manage a little bit better so that the dip is a little bit more manageable. But there still is a dip in mood, in energy, and then we see that rise again and kind of rise to regular levels. So some of the things that are really key to keep in mind if you find yourself struggling with a major depressive episode is establishing a support network. Oftentimes when people are depressed, they tend to kind of think like a turtle, go inward, they pull inward, they go into their shell, they put up their protective nature, and often people don't know that they're in a depressive episode. They don't reach out, they don't want people to know, they don't want people to judge them. And it's really important for people to establish a network that is supportive, that understands their depression, maybe not even understands, but can be supportive in it. That they really feel like you can turn to and talk to, and they're not going to judge you. And oftentimes some people feel like they don't have anyone, or there's no one in their corner that they can really talk to. So sometimes this is where health professionals can come in, reaching out to a therapist, talking to somebody. And I guarantee you, if you do struggle with major depressive disorder, reaching out to somebody, you would probably be surprised at how many people do struggle with some sort of depressive episode. At times, everybody's feeling a little bit down. Everybody can kind of relate to that, but to the levels of depression really are growing exponentially in our country. Not only getting better at recognizing it, but many effects of poor diet over generations, and a lack of health, not exercising regularly. And our lifestyles have just become a lot more sedentary over the last few generations as people have gotten desk jobs or things that have gone, jobs that have taken us more inside. There's less people who own farms or work outside. And as those have happened, we are actually seeing depressive episodes across the country increase. We also have a lot more social network phones, people sitting on phones, watching TV shows, not just even 15, 20 years ago when everybody had a television in their house, we were sitting around watching, America's Got Talent with a group of people. Grey's Anatomy, you'd go to someone's house or people would come around, or you'd watch it all together and there's people around. And so as we're seeing that less and less, as we become more of a instant demand, and we see, episodes on our phone, or we're watching things on our phone, or we're binging Netflix or various things like that as a culture, we are actually seeing a rise in mental health, and depression is one of those. So establishing a support network is really important to find yourself being able to reach out to those people, and take a look at your life of how you are cutting people out when major depressive episodes are happening in your life. How am I eliminating my outreach to other people? Maybe I'm still able to make it to work, but am I not talking to people? Am I sitting alone at lunch? Am I in my car? Do I go to a fast food restaurant at lunch, gobble down my food, watch an episode on my phone, and head back inside, and continue working? Or am I eating with people? Am I eating my lunch outside? Am I getting outside? Am I getting any vitamin D? What am I doing in my life that might be contributing to that? There are certainly things to look at, but that support network is also where that comes. And so looking at how you're cutting that off is really important. Another thing that is really, really helpful in depression is regular exercise. Exercise is vital to improving our moods, balancing hormones and chemicals in our bodies, really reducing stress, right? We put our body through stress to reduce our overall stress and anxiety levels and depression. Like I said, we are a society who is moving into a more sedentary lifestyle, and the more sedentary we are, the more we see mental health issues rising. And it really is important. Our bodies are made to move. We are made to be active. We're made to move. And when we aren't, it definitely increases our depressive episodes, our anxiety, our stress levels. They become just a little more difficult to manage. We also get with that, because our hearts aren't as healthy, because we're not doing the exercises or things that maybe we should be, we see that a decline in health. And the more health problems we have, higher cholesterol, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, various things like that, we also see a rise in mental health. So making sure that you're regularly exercising and incorporating, getting those. It's really important to have those cardiovascular activities like running or biking into your routine as much as possible, because getting that blood flowing, getting your oxygen up, getting all of that functioning and flowing together really does help manage depressive episodes. Again, it's not going to stop them completely, but it also can get you out of that, right? Like I said earlier with one of my clients, the goal was just to get her up and walking to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. Once we did that, she was like, oh, I can make it to the mailbox. Oh, I can make it a little bit further down the street. Oh, I can make it to the end of the block and back. And at the end of the block, oh, I run into a neighbor who I haven't seen in a while because I've been busy, she's been busy, whatever. And they end up having a really great conversation, and they're able to support each other, and they actually have more in common. And then they're going on regular walks together. Again, depressive episodes still come, but she looks forward to going on her walk with the neighbor. She looks forward to getting her body up and moving, right? Doesn't mean that some days aren't super hard, and I would rather stay in bed with the covers over my head and not come out. Definitely happens, but exercise can be a key part in helping manage those times. Avoiding unhealthy coping mechanisms such as substance or alcohol use they really can make them worse. We often see depression trying to be mitigated by alcohol. But alcohol is a depressant, and so oftentimes it actually spurs more depression. It covers it up. It makes me feel good for a few hours, gives me a little buzz, I'm able to relax and cope and feel like I can manage better. But overall, it actually is keeping me more depressed. Other substance abuse, it may feel like it's chilling me out, it's relaxing me. However, there's a lot of numbing out and a lot of coping that is just covering up the root of the issue. And so making sure that if you are using those, that you're really doing your best to manage them. You're only using them on a very limited basis, that you don't become dependent on them, because then having an active addiction on top of depression, very comorbid, very common, very difficult to treat, and becomes really hard. I don't want to feel depressed. I don't want to feel sad. And so I use a substance to make me feel better, but then my dependence on that substance starts to also ruin my life, make me cope with in very unhealthy ways, and ruins my relationships, maybe costs me jobs, money, people, and all because it started out as depression, but I was numbing or coping with a different substance. So making sure that you are really trying to cope with other things, not substance use. Depression can feel like, I just want to talk about kind of what depression can feel like. And it is, like I said, really common to withdraw and shut down. It can feel really heavy and really dark. It is more than just a sadness. As I was saying earlier, people can kind of relate. Anyone can kind of relate, because there are days that, some days it just feels hard and the world is a tough place, and I don't want to get up and I don't want to keep going. And depression is more than just a sad feeling. It's more than just today is hard. It can start out that way, but it leads into bigger things. Often, as I said, it affects major functioning and just being able to get up and go do life. But it also can sort of mask or discolor things that you genuinely used to have an interest in. Hobbies, things that I've always loved doing may not seem so fun. It really can color or discolor your interest or love for doing things. Sometimes we also see people getting really bored of things that they once did, inability to focus, just a lack of a genuine disinterest in most things in life. Not just a kind of an unmotivated, like, what's the point sort of feeling. It can become really, really hard to stay out of what's my purpose, why am I here? Life would be better. Everybody else's life around me would be better if I wasn't here. So depression can spiral into suicidal ideations or thoughts, and just a general overall boredom, dissatisfaction with life, can lead to some pretty other major consequences as well. So making sure that you're trying to do whatever you can to, find a new hobby, increase your exercise, eating healthy, getting outside. There's some research out there as well. I can't quote it right now, but I don't have it on hand, but there is some research out there that vitamin D deficiency actually looks very, very similar. A lot of the symptoms are very similar to a depressive episode. And so making sure that you're getting enough vitamin D, especially as we, heading right now, as I'm recording this podcast, we're heading into winter. Whenever you listen to this, we might not be heading into winter, but make sure that you're doing those things to get out. I like to ski in the winter, and even making sure that you're taking off your helmet, taking off things that as you're outside in the winter that you aren't completely covered up, that you're allowing some time for your skin to soak in the vitamin D is really important. So making sure that you're doing that so that it doesn't become a double-edged sword with vitamin D deficiency and a major depressive disorder. So if you do find yourself struggling, making sure that you are getting enough vitamin D. There are lots of like UV lamps out there that you could sit under while you're watching your shows, or cozied up with a glass of hot chocolate. Just making sure that you are taking care of yourself that way as well, particularly if you live somewhere where it's cold and there is winter type seasons. Making sure that you are getting enough vitamin D is really important. Other ways to manage can be also seeking professional help, like a therapist, a life coach, someone that can really support you in your battle with depression. Taking medication. Sometimes, again, we see there's a chemical imbalance, and a little bit of medication goes a long way with depression. And really engaging in healthy lifestyles, getting outside, getting fresh air, getting enough vitamin D, staying active and positive are some of the very best ways that you can really manage your anxiety. One of the things that also can contribute to just an overwhelmed or sadness feeling is clutter, disorganization, feeling like I'm running all over or I live in a mess. So making sure that you are taking even just 5 minutes and cleaning up one part of your house, or making sure that this, where I spend most of my time is clean. Cleaning your car or living space or a workspace sometimes can also really help to contribute to your overall feeling of purpose, your overall feeling of I did something today. Finding really small tasks to be able to tack on to feeling that sense of purpose, that sense of worth. That's oftentimes that biggest part of that depression comes from feeling a lack of worth or feeling a lack of purpose. And even breaking down your day into really small things can really help mitigate some of those symptoms. Staying positive with yourself about, giving yourself credit of, well, I didn't clean the whole house, but I cleaned off the counter in the bathroom. Call it a win. Really, truly pat yourself on the back. One of the things I like to have my clients do is look themselves in the mirror and tell themselves something positive about themselves, not something that they're wearing or their hair or something like that, but really something that they genuinely like about themselves. It's really hard to do because that's not a comfortable thing to do. We're not accustomed to doing that. But oftentimes when people are struggling with depression, it's really hard to take in compliments from other people, but especially from ourselves. We become really self-critical, and it's hard to hear those things. And so giving yourself that compliment, looking yourself in the mirror, taking a big deep breath and giving yourself a compliment of, you know what? I did it. I did it today. No buts, no, but I didn't do this and I didn't do that. No buts. Really just focusing on the one thing that you did today and the thing that you did well. Maybe you didn't even do it well, but you got it done. And that's like focusing on that positive can help build momentum into helping yourself stay a little bit more positive and avoid those harder pitfall moments where things become a little bit harder. Depression is really, it's out there. It's really hard. It's hard to be in it because we want to isolate ourselves. And that's one of the hardest things that you could do. The most ineffective ways to manage your depression is to keep it inside and to fight through it yourself. So reach out, talk to a therapist, talk to a friend, talk to a support network that can really get behind you and make you feel better. Make sure that you're eating healthy, getting outside. I cannot stress enough how important exercise is, even if it's to the mailbox and back. Just one small thing that you can do to make your day, get out of bed, get that exercise, even if it's a sprint to the mailbox and back, even if it's a walk, even if it's a saunter, it doesn't matter. Get up, get your body moving. You can do it. You are not alone in this, and you are worth it. You deserve it. You deserve to have happiness and purpose in your life, and that starts with you. And I know you can do it. And if you can't, or you're struggling in some way, please reach out for help. There's so many resources out there, whether it be a podcast or a therapist or a friend or a neighbor or a daughter or a son or a husband or a wife or a partner. Whoever it is, reach out, get some help, get a support network, and manage your depression today, because you do not have to live. You're probably going to live with it for the rest of your life, but it doesn't have to be your headline of your story. It doesn't have to be front and center. It doesn't have to be flashing lights all the time. There are ways to better manage your depression, and it starts with you today, doing something little and small about it. So do it today. If this podcast was for you, if you're here listening to this and wondering, what the heck can I do to manage this? Pick one small thing that you can do today to make your depression the sideline instead of the headliner in your show. It's been so great talking to you today about depression and talking about mental health, because it matters and you matter, and depression is out there and you are not alone. Reach out for help. You deserve it. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.